Imagine you're about to buy your biggest asset, at least you're in the process of, and by asset, I mean buying your first home. And things like option money, contingency, earnest money, closing costs, and all these things are thrown at you, and this is something you have no idea you're getting yourself into. Buying your first home can be such a big deal, and there's a lot of information out there, and the purpose of this video is to get all of that aligned so you know the exact process of buying a home. My name is PJ, and I'm a realtor in the Houston area, and let's get this video started. So, a whopping 63% of millennials regret buying a home, and that is a lot. And I was reading the article by CNBC. Most of it definitely could have been avoided. They mentioned things like they didn't know how much closing costs were. They didn't know how much money they needed to have up front. They didn't know about insurance. They didn't know about upcoming repairs. And these are all things that could be covered as long as you pick the right agent to represent you, which brings me to step number one of buying a home, and that is picking the right agent. Here in the Houston area, there's a whopping 40,000 agents just in the Houston area alone. Now, out of these 40,000 agents, probably about 10,000 maybe are about full-time and the rest are part-time, and they just have their license just in case something comes up, or they're investors and they just want to represent themselves. So why is picking an agent so important? Because after dealing with so many agents this past year, I've realized that not everybody knows what they're doing. This last week alone, 2 agents missed the option period and they didn't get the chance to negotiate on repairs for their clients. And that's a very big deal, as I'll get further into this video. Picking an agent. So let's just say you're looking in a certain area, you want to know who's the right agent, who's the top producing agent, and of course you most likely have a friend that is an agent. You just want to make sure that they have some experience under the belt. They know all the terms. They explain everything to you. And if you're picking a random agent, you want to make sure that they're not just trying to get the sale, and they're trying to get to know you, your story, and why you're looking for a home in the first place. Here in Houston, I usually get referrals most of the time, and occasionally I'll get clients from open houses. But I get referrals because my previous clients had such a good experience with me, and that's what you're really looking for, an agent, other people who have had a great experience. Now, I'll come back to step number one multiple times, which is picking an agent, as I go through the whole process, and you'll see exactly why. Step number 2 is getting pre-approved. Now, if you are a first-time home buyer, most likely that you need to get a mortgage and you're not a cash buyer. If you're going to be a cash buyer and you have a lot of money saved up and you're buying your first home, this step does not even apply to you. So, getting pre-approved. Now, sometimes steps 1 and 2 are interchangeable, but it's important to pick a right agent because they will lead you to a great lender who will help you get pre-approved. What does it mean to get pre-approved? Well, they're basically going to run your credit and your income levels and all that great stuff to see if you qualify to buy a home, and if you do want to buy a home, how much you qualify for. Now, if you want to get the process started and you're kind of not really sure, 2 rules kind of kept coming up, and one was the 30% rule. So that rule is that you can afford 30% of your monthly income. So let's say you make $10,000 a month, you can afford up to $3,000 in a mortgage monthly. Another rule is the 2.5 of your salary. So if you make $100,000 a year, you can afford up to $250,000 a year. Now, this is just a rule of thumb, kind of flexible in a way, because there's so many things that can go into it, like your credit score, your debt to income ratio, how much you're making, your assets, and there's just so much that goes into it. But that's a good idea, so you know where to start. The lender will take you through the whole process, and they'll start asking you for paperwork, prove your income, and show your debt, show your income, your bank statements, and all that great stuff. Again, if you don't know where to start with a mortgage lender, the right agent will lead you to a great lender, and usually this lender and the agent have worked together before, which makes it a lot easier. One thing I will note is I usually don't recommend banks, the big banks, Chase Bank, Bank of America, and the reason for that is, well, they don't work weekends, and real estate is honestly 24/7. we are working every single day, and sometimes we need to talk to the lender on the weekend. If there's a closing on Monday, or there's a closing on Friday that got moved to Monday, and you need to keep talking back and forth with the lender, which is why I don't usually recommend Bank of America or Chase or any of the big banks, because a lender that usually we work with, they work every single day, so we can get to them any single time. Step number 3 is sitting down with your agent and figuring out the subdivision you want to live in, the area you want to live in. You want to be zoned to a certain number of schools, and time to start going shopping. At this point, you have your pre-approved letter and you know the agent you're going to work with. So you're going to sit down with your agent and say, hey, I want a 2-bedroom. I want to stay I'm pre-approved up to $250,000. We have a kid on the way, and we're not too worried about school zoning for the next 4 or 5 years, so we can really live anywhere in this area. No flooding, all that great stuff. So this is the time you and your agent really get to sit down and talk with each other and find out what you're really looking for in a home. There's so much that goes into a house. I mean, some people only want wood in a house, only a tile, 1-story, 2-story, want to be close to their best friends, want to be close to the freeway, want to be close to the work. There's so much that goes into this part, but an agent, after you give them all that information, will pull up the list of homes that you're going to go look for. Step number 4 is writing the offer for the home that you fell in love with. Now, this process is a very cookie cutter process. There's so many things that can be changed. There's so many things that can come up, but this is just kind of the cookie cutter, like a perfect deal in a certain situation. So kind of the whole process if you do get into that. But again, it's very cookie cutter. There's so much that can go: inspections, getting pre-approved, the underwriting process, and etc. So I just wanted to note that this is a very cookie cutter process. So step number 4, like I said, is writing an offer on the home that you love. And this is where the agent really comes in handy, because if you picked an agent that really knows their area, they're going to run comps on the house that you fell in love with. And let's say it's listed at $280,000 and everything around that neighborhood is only selling for $240,000. You don't want an agent just to come in and say, yeah, we'll write it for $270,000, and so the agent gets a higher commission and all that great stuff. No, you want an agent you can trust that's going to run comps for you and saying, hey, this is what your neighbor sold for, this is what the house across the street for. They had a pool, you don't have a pool, so this is what I think we should go in at. And that's why you want to pick an agent that knows the area and you can trust. There's so much that goes into writing a contract, and if it's a multiple offer situation, having an agent with a lot of experience comes really handy, especially if the agent's worked with this other agent before, because one little difference in a contract can mean that someone else is getting the offer and you're not getting the house because your agent didn't make it a competitive offer. I mean, there's so many things that can go into writing an offer, such as who pays the title policy, who pays for a new survey, is furniture included in the house, is the house contingent. There's just 20 different things we can write different to make it more competitive than the other agent. So that, again, step number 1 is extremely important. Step number 5, woo! You are under contract with the house that you fell in love with, and now you will write your first 2 checks. But I will talk about check number 1 right now, but you also have to write check number 2 in this process. Check number 1 is called the option check. So you basically get anywhere from 7 to 10 days, again negotiable, to do inspections on the house and do whatever you want to do with the house. And at this point is when you decide, hey, we want this fixed before we move in, or we want a certain amount of cash back at closing so we can fix this ourselves because the sellers don't want to fix it. So usually here in Houston, we do about $20 a day, 10 days. So you write a check for $200 made out to the seller. Check number 2 is the earnest money, is usually 1% of the sales price. Now we've been fixed on $250,000. So let's say that you'll be writing a check for $2,500 made out to the title company so they can open title on this home, and they can do all and make sure that the home doesn't have any liens and it's good to go for closing, and you're not gonna have any trouble once you close, and the HOA doesn't come after you, the tax people don't come after you, and all that good stuff. So during the option period is when you schedule your inspections. If you don't get anything in this whole video, this is the most important part. The inspection is the biggest investment you will make on that house before you buy it. Do not cheap out on the inspection Absolutely not. And I've had a buyer do it before and it was a disaster and we ended up not closing on the home. And it just, no. Go all in on the inspection. And this is where, again, an agent comes in handy, because picking out the right inspector and make sure everything is properly inspected, negotiating on the repairs, knowing how much all the repairs are going to cost is so important. Or you're going to close on the house, walk into the house, turn on the AC, realize it's not working, jump into the pool, realize that the filter's not working, and etc. and etc. And you want to avoid this at all costs. Pick a great inspector, and if it's an old house, get everything inspected: foundation, roof, AC, and the whole general house inspection, mechanical, structural, everything you can. If it's a newer house, I usually do recommend still getting almost everything inspected. It's just so important. And a roof inspection and a foundation inspection sometimes is free. Here in the Houston area, most of the time it is free. So this step is extremely important, and that is the option period, where you pick the inspector and get all this great work done. Step number six, whichever way you want to see it, is to start negotiating on those repairs once the inspection report is in your hands. So here in Houston, you've got to get everything bought. Let's say we have the option period for 10 days. On that 10th day by 5 p.m., we have to have those repairs negotiated, or these repairs aren't getting done, or my client is not getting cash back. And that it just happened, and it's not on my end, on the other end, and it's just a terrible thing to happen. So let's just say you get the inspection report. Usually it's about 40 to 50 pages. No house is ever going to be perfect. I've had clients buy a brand new house and things were here and there. You want to focus on the big things. You want to make sure the AC is working. You want to make sure that the roof doesn't need any repairs, and basically go through the inspection report with your agent, which is why, again, step number 1 is so important. And the agent should be able to point out which is the most expensive part, which he thinks he should get fixed, what you should think you should get fixed. Personally, I'll usually ask my clients to make their own list. I'll make my own list, and then we compare the two and see which ones really need to be put in there. And sometimes if it's a completely new first-time home buyer, I just do the list myself, and I'll say, hey, this is why I put everything in here. So step number 6 is to negotiate on those repairs and either ask for them to be done or ask for cash back at closing, whichever one you feel more comfortable with. And sometimes the sellers just don't want to deal with repairs, so they'll just say, hey, I'm giving you $5,000 at closing to get the roof fixed, the AC fixed, and all that. Step number 7 is the underwriting process. Congratulations, you have gone through the option period, and now your mortgage or your loan officer will start going through what's called the underwriting process. What is the underwriting process? Well, they're just making sure that they can trust you with this loan. They're going to look at your debt to income ratio, and honestly, if you're looking to buy a house, your debt to income ratio should be anywhere from max probably 62%, or you're probably looking at a higher interest rate. Your credit score, they're going to go through all your bank statements and basically give you the clear to close on your home. Can't go into too much detail into this because I'm not a lender, I'm not a loan officer, so you can do more research on your own. But basically this next part takes about 15 to 20 days depending on your lender, and in general it takes about 30 to 45 days to close on a house. So step number 7 is all about the mortgage, and at this point your agent's kind of checking in with the lender. I usually check in about every 3 to 5 days to make sure we're still on track to close at the right proper time. And also you want to make sure that you're sending in all your paperwork that the lender is asking for, so you don't delay closing any more than you need to. And at this point, you're almost there. You're getting ready to clear to close. Step number 8, I guess a lot of people end up forgetting this part, and that is the walkthrough. So congratulations, you got the clear to close and all this. And let's just say you ask for certain repairs to be done. Me and my clients, the day before closing or the day of closing, which I try and avoid, I like to do it the day before, I'll take all the receipts from the repairs we asked for and I'll walk through the house with my clients, and we'll make sure that the repairs were done properly and there's no default in the contract in any certain way. Just recently, one of our clients, the sellers did not fix the leak in the sink, and they told us they did. and it was still leaking, and literally about 30 minutes before closing they finally got it fixed, and then we closed. At that point the seller's in default, so the buyer's not about to lose any money or anything like that. And then step number 9, at this point you should know exactly how much you need to bring to closing. So let's say you decide to put 20% down. There's also closing costs on top of that, which is usually 1%. And what exactly are closing costs? Well, you're basically paying the lender, you're paying the title company, and it just really adds up, and you want to make sure that you get that clear to close, which shows you exactly how much you need to bring to closing. At this point, your agent, again, why step number 1 is important, will talk to you and say, hey, how do you want to bring this to close? Do you want to get a wire to the title company? Do you want to write a check? And basically at this point you're almost there. But again, I reiterate this part because so many people don't realize that, oh, I'm bringing 20% down, and 20% down on a $200,000 house is $40,000, and they think they only need to bring $40,000. There's closing costs on top of that, and then you've already written a check for option money and earnest money. And these kind of terms, people don't realize they need to write more checks than just the check to buy the house, which is why I wanted to make this video so more people know and they can search these own terms. And again, this is a very quick video just to go through the whole process. Step number 10, it is closing day. Congratulations, you probably worked so hard for this day to finally close on this home. Usually at this point, it's taken 30 to 45 days of paperwork and negotiations to finally get here. And at this point, you can ask your title rep, your mortgage person, your agent, any questions you have before you fully sign all that paperwork. Because once that paperwork's signed, that house is yours. And everything gets cleared, like your check, your wires, and your lender sends over the money to buy the house. And this is such an important day for you, so congrats for getting this far. Again, this is a very cookie cutter kind of concept of going through. There's so many different things I could have brought up, such as contingencies, leasebacks, underwriting not going through, and different things. But I wanted to just kind of show the overall process, show a quick video of anybody who's thinking about buying a home. I will also eventually cover the selling portion, but right now I love working with buyers because it's so cool to see them get so excited about buying a house. And some of them have been renting their whole life and they finally saved up to buy a house, and it's such an important day. So I absolutely love the buy side because it's just so fun. I mean, there are some clients that, they want to see like 30,000 houses and they never buy one and then they disappear. So those kind of days sucks, but it makes up for that client that's been saving up their entire life to buy their first house. So again, my name is PJ. I'm a realtor in the Houston area. If you have any questions, my email is in the description box. If you're thinking about buying a home and you have questions, feel free to email me. Even if you have another agent, whatever it is, if it's so important to know, make sure all your questions are answered, and not every single agent is going to give you the same attention I personally would. So, and if you're thinking about buying in Houston, feel free to hit me up. And if you need help in another state, it is kind of different from state to state to state. So I'll do my best to help you. But if you have any questions about real estate and buying your first house, or buying a house in general, or even selling your house, I'm all yours. Again, my name is PJ. I'm a realtor in the Houston area, and thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and comment. My last video, credit video, did really well. Starting to grow the channel more and more, so I want to help and keep doing this over and over again. Thank you guys for all your support, and have a blessed one, and good luck with buying your first home.